Welcome to Rising Stars, where Miriam Knight, publisher of New Consciousness Review, interviews exciting new voices in the world of progressive and transformational books, films, and ideas, who offer intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us as we celebrate the conscious awakening and explore many expressions of consciousness in action.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Miriam Knight, and our guest today is Rob Bell. Rob is a best-selling author and international teacher and speaker at the forefront of contemporary Christian thinking. His books include Love Wins, The Zimzum of Love with his wife, Kristen, What We Talk About When We Talk About God, Velvet Elvis, Sex God, Jesus Wants to Save Christians, and Drops Like Stars. He has been profiled in Time magazine, which selected him as one of 2011's 100 most influential people. His Robcast is regularly the #1 spiritual podcast in the world and was named by iTunes as one of the best of 2015. His television special aired on the Oprah Winfrey Network in fall 2014, and he was a featured speaker on Oprah's The Life You Want tour. Today, we are going to discuss his new book, How to Be Here. Welcome, Rob.
It's great to be with you.
Now, I must be one of the few people in the Western world who hadn't heard of you until I got your book for review.
There's probably a lot of you, let's be honest.
But I really am so glad I did. Tell me, why did you write this book now?
Because I kept noticing that when you're at a dinner party and someone's telling a story about how great they are and how successful they are and how accomplished they are, it's kind of boring. But when somebody tells a story about disaster and failure and walking uphill in the mud in a thunderstorm, and it's something about all the times you fell down and got back up, those are the stories that we actually find interesting. And I realized in my own life, it is the moments when everything fell apart that are actually the moments later that you realize shaped you and formed you. And then I hit my head 15 years ago, which I tell about in the book, and had this closed head injury. And because of the concussion I had, I got like a tour of my life. And it was this extraordinary experience when I saw the whole thing as this extraordinary, holy, sacred gift. And I wrote the book now because I realized for 15 years, in many ways, I've been trying to learn how to live with that sense of gratitude every day. And this book is sort of what I've learned.
You know, there's just so much turmoil and confusion in the world today.
Yes.
I think that people really need the kind of help your book offers on
well, great.
Living.
Thank you.
Also, how to ignite their passion for life, which you clearly have in abundance. Thank you for introducing me to the term ikigai.
Yes.
Please tell our listeners what that is.
Right. You know, I came across this. I saw something on longevity, where people live the longest in the world. And one of the places where people live the longest is an island off the coast of Japan. And they said one of the reasons why is because they have this idea of ikigai, which is this Japanese word that essentially means that which gets you up in the morning. And sometimes it's translated reason for being. And that it's understood that your ikigai will shift and morph and change over the years. And then in many ways, what you're doing with your life is working out your reason for being. And I've heard people talk about calling and passion and vocation and, you know, what you're born to do. But I love the idea of ikigai as an ongoing, fluid, dynamic process that will involve some element of struggle. So, and it's also fun to say, because when you don't know how to pronounce it, you just fake it, like you did. Ikigai. Let's just assume that's what it is. And then I also had met a number of people who, you know, they went to university and got trained in something, but then that industry changed, or they lost their passion for it, or they got fired, and it brought about this massive existential crisis. But when you have this sense of ikigai, then you live with an awareness that it'll probably shift and change over the course of your life. And that's not only okay, it's totally normal. And it's to be welcomed, not fought.
I must say that I really resonated with that, because so many people say, oh, you just have to go and find your passion, and find your purpose in life. Well, we grow, we morph, we become.
Yes, and you aren't who you were. That person has passed.
Absolutely.
And that there are seasons to life. It's interesting in the modern world, with so many people disconnected from nature, living in cement and tile floors and fluorescent lighting. When you're disconnected from nature, you're disconnected from the fact that everything is seasons. It's summer, fall, winter, spring. It's sunrises, sunsets, that tides come in, tides go out. That all of nature is about seasons. They come and then they go. And that it's okay for a season to end. And it's okay to let it go and then have a new season begin. That's all actually a very healthy way to understand your life.
I've just recently been interviewing people about books related to aging. And certainly the notion of seasons is very relevant to that.
Yes.
And finding the beauty in each season, the particular beauty in each one.
Yes. And in some ways you have, especially American culture, you have an obsession with avoiding the fact that we're going to get older. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever you do, just pretend like you're not going to die. But in all the great wisdom traditions, you begin with, hey, by the way, you're going to die. Now, in these few moments you have here, you might as well really live. What are you going to do? And it's such a better way to think about it.
Now, are you still a practicing pastor?
That's a great question. My wife says I should not use that word, because for many people that they immediately think of an hour on Sunday morning. And I started a church in my late 20s with my wife and some friends, and for most of my working life until 5 years ago, I was a pastor in a local church. And now I write books and I speak in all sorts of interesting settings, and I have a one-man show at a local comedy club, and I create these pop-up events in cities around the world, and I'm just having a blast. So not in the traditional sense, although some of my friends would say, you know what, you're like pastoring more than ever. It's just without that big institution in the way.
In preparing for this show, I have been reading about you on the web. Interestingly,
It's all true. If it's on the interweb, it's all true.
You've actually had a book, a biography written about you, which was fascinating.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
We'll get back to that. But I had another question. In your pastoral work and beyond, what do you believe is the greatest source of pain for people?
The greatest source of pain. It's interesting. There's a writer named David Kessler who says, pain is the thing that happened to you, and then suffering is what your mind does with it. And honestly, I've seen horrible, families whose kids committed suicide, and cancer and betrayal and infidelity. But honestly, the greatest source of pain is what I have seen is the inner dialogue that people have, that beating themselves up, shame, voices that they allow to just pester their mind and heart with their worthlessness. That's what I've seen again and again, is if you can get at those voices that people carry around, telling them that they're no good, that they don't deserve anything, that they don't belong, that they're horrible, that they're a mistake. If you can get at those voices and confront them and drag them out in the sunlight, that's when interesting things begin to happen.
And do you think that spirituality is a way to address that?
Absolutely. Just think about like the power of a good mantra. Think about the power of a phrase that you can repeat in a moment of quiet. Spirituality and having a spiritual practice and believing that your life is a gift and how you respond to it and what you do with it matters is one of the greatest ways to deal with the pain of life. Mm-hmm. Because you can always return whatever it is, however you need to grieve it, however angry, whatever injustice or betrayal it is, you have this gift of life, and you have today, and you get to do something with it. And oftentimes we need reminders of what we already know, that forgiving people is always the best path, being generous is always the best way to be, the joy is always found in celebrating the good wherever you find it. And a path, spiritual practice, mantras, prayers, teachings, disciplines, they bind us together. They bind us as people to each other. It's incredible what can happen when you have a path.
Feed your soul with Waves of Consciousness on OMTimes Radio. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the Internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio, IOM-FM.
I always talk about there is a light on the other side of heavy. And what happened to me is I started out at a very young age as a pastor. And when you're a pastor, what's interesting is people invite you into their inner ring of life. So you're right there in the middle of the wedding ceremony. You're there in the hospital when the baby, after 6 days of trying to live, dies. Like, you're right in the front row of all this. And I kept noticing that if you go all the way into the heart of that pain and suffering, all you're left with is the power of this moment. And all that heaviness actually pushed me through to some other side. It took years to a lightness on the other side of heaviness. And I actually did this event with the Dalai Lama and Bishop Tutu. And what was so fascinating to me is when they meet each other, they hug each other, and then they begin tickling each other and giggling. And I did not know this. I'm standing right here, they're on either side of me, hugging and tickling and giggling like young boys. And in that moment, I was like, wait, these are people who have seen the worst human beings can do to each other. And yet they weren't heavy and oppressive and you don't understand how bad it is out there. There was this lightness with them, as if we've seen how bad it could be, so you had better enjoy this moment. The lightness on the other side of heaviness has just been revolutionary for me.
One of the things that so attracted me to the book and really engaged me was the way that you describe some of your worst moments and then show the universal message that came out of it.
Yes.
So, creativity, that is the gift that we have with this lifetime. Why do people fear it?
Well, the whole thing is way more risky than anybody was ever told from the beginning. So in the book, I just walk through, you get to create your life, and you get to shape it and form it. And so for many people, the reason why they resist this sort of thinking is because, well, you don't understand all the things that happened to me. But how you respond to those events, especially the ones that you never wanted to happen to you, is a creative act. And for many people, they were given a worldview that there is this fixed, static, established world, and then you just go out into it and hopefully you'll find your place. But in the ancient Hebrew consciousness, which brought us the scriptures, you have this dynamic openness, you participate in the ongoing creation of the world. You have way more power than you realize to act, to shape, to form it. But if you look back through history, the way that you build an empire and get power and manipulate people is not by telling them how much power they have, but by telling them how little power they have. So I think for a lot of people, they were just raised in a world where they were told, stay in line, don't break the rules, just do what you're told. And when you say, actually, there's way less rules than anybody told you, and you have more power to create your life, it's scary and dangerous and risky, and it's also way more fun.
You have to take that responsibility, too. I mean, it means that whatever goes right or goes wrong in your life is because of what you've done, not because of them out there.
Yes, and it's interesting. Lately, in my live events, I will say to the audience, okay, now we're going to do a pop quiz, and I will say to the audience, yes or no to the following questions. And I'll say, did your parents live life as if it's an adventure that you go on or a trial to be endured? And it's unbelievable how many people say it's a trial to be endured. And so for many people, just a couple of questions in, look at what you were raised in an environment that taught you that this is just something you try and get through, which is very different from your life. You are the recipient of a sacred, holy gift. And the question that has been the fundamental question for thousands of years is, what are you going to do with these sacred, holy energies you've been given on these few years on this floating green and blue ball hurtling through space at 67,000 miles an hour? And that just becomes a much more compelling question to ask and life to live.
I can understand why you're considered a bit of a revolutionary. Because religion really has been pulling in the other direction, established religion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And you think about it, I mean, the great mystics talked about radical amazement. The modern world was built on standing in mastery over things. You take them apart so that you can build airports and hospitals and televisions. You grasp them and you dominate them. But the moments in life that bring you the most joy are not moments when you stood there in a lab coat with a clipboard making observations. They're moments when you were caught up in something. When you weren't standing at a distance analyzing, you were caught up in the participation in a moment. And that's just a different way of understanding your life. So, and many of the institutions that were supposed to cultivate this sense of wonder and awe for life on this planet, care of this planet, care for each other, many of those institutions have failed us. So that's why you and I should have this conversation, as all sorts of people are realizing the modern world gave us these incredible luxuries and technology, but it also left behind some things we need to reclaim.
Indeed. And the thing that you are talking about reclaiming is the passion that you can have for what you do in the world. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now, you say that getting a paycheck for doing what you love may actually ruin it for you. Yeah. You also suggest that wealth can ruin people. So,
Absolutely.
What is it here about money?
Well, for many people, what it helps is to help them see that however they were raised in whatever world they come from, they are part of a system, and systems always have rules, assumptions. Many of them are unspoken about what matters and what doesn't. But think about how many kids who at some point in their life, they expressed a love or desire for something, and they were told, you can't make very good money doing that. That's not a legitimate job. You can't have a career in that. So something within their true self was speaking to them. This is who you are. This is your path. But they were part of a larger tribe, system, institution, religion, that said, nah, that's not really acceptable. And so they essentially denied their true self and headed in a different direction. And sometimes that different direction was very profitable. There's a social self, the part of us that learns how to play by the rules, how to gain respect, how to achieve. But it's one of the great truths of the wisdom tradition is money is a fantastic servant, but not the best master. And I've just met so many people who they got to the top of whatever area they decided to compete in, and they're bored out of their mind because life is, when it's lived from the heart, is just lived according to a different set of rules. And money just makes everything, it's so, it can be so deceiving because people are like, well, you know what, the money's good. Yeah, great, the money's good, and your heart is a wreck.
Yeah.
Come on.
And
There's
then,
this big joke that people come to my events and then quit their jobs. So now at the beginning of my events, I just say, for those of you who at some point today are going to realize I'm not in the right place and you're going to quit your job, A, you're not the first, and B, you're welcome.
oh dear. So you also make a big point of the distinction between a craft and success.
Yes.
So the craft is more doing whatever you do with love. So
and dignity and honor. And
right.
I just kept noticing, because for a number of years, I lived with this assumption, you know what, when we get to this point, when we accomplish that, when we achieve that level of success, then we're really going to live. And I had this feeling like my joy was just up ahead in the road. And if I could just get there, then. And then sometimes I'd actually reach that goal, and there was this profound sort of existential thud, like, wait, that was the thing we were working for? It's that thing that happens when the new car smell fades, and it's just a car. And it's like the new car smell of the soul. You were like, oh, if I could just get that then, and then you got it, and you were like, wait, this is it? And I noticed when I would meet people that some people, they were quick to announce to you all the things they'd accomplished and all the things they were going to accomplish. And I noticed how often they were either stuck back in the past, resting on the things they'd done, or stuck in the future on all the things they were going to accomplish. But then I also noticed sometimes I interact with people, and they had this humble gratitude that they even get to do the work they get to do. And the sense that they are part of a group of people who do whatever it is they do. A mom, an insurance agent, a painter. Mm-hmm. And they would talk with this sense of exploration and discovery, like there are these subtleties and nuances to the work. And with each year, you gain a bit more wisdom and expertise. And I noticed that the people who often talk the most about success, the question was generally, what more can I get? And people who seem to be in what I would call craft, their question was, can you believe I get to do this?
Yes.
And that, I mean, for a number of years, whether it was a doctor or a painter, or in lots of traditions, it was assumed that you would get better as you got older because there was this growing body of expertise and wisdom, and that the surprises would never stop coming because you're exploring and learning and discovering. And when I embraced being a student, things just got way more interesting. I'm a student. I'm learning how to communicate, trying to be the best spiritual teacher I can be. And I'm going to be doing this till the day I die. And so each day becomes, what will we learn talking with Miriam today? Who knows? Let's see. Let's find out. And life got so much more fun and interesting.
Well, that goes back to something that we raised earlier about elders and aging.
Yes.
That too often getting older is equated to becoming useless.
Right. And it's interesting. A friend of mine's a physical therapist, and he goes all over the world. He sort of pioneered some new ways of thinking about physical therapy. And he said that in India, the oldest person in the village is the most flexible person. Isn't that fascinating?
Yes.
And that the villages in India where he's at, age doesn't bring a brittle stiffness, but it brings a loose, limber flexibility, which I thought that's a metaphor if there ever was one.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, we could go on talking all day, and
yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have all day to talk. But I really would love for you to tell people a little bit more about your activities, the performances,
yes.
all the juicy things that you're doing.
Well, actually, right now, we do like pop-up living rooms. So around the world, I'll rent like a dance hall or an art gallery or a club, and then we bring in chairs in the round, and we make like a giant living room with all the chairs in a circle, and then I'm in the very middle, and I'll like present an idea from the book, like, craft and success, and then people will start asking questions, and then I'll go over here, and then we'll go over there, and so I do these events all over the place. You can get all that info at robbell.com, where the next ones are. And then I do events here in West Hollywood where I live. This fall, like I'll do an event on communicating for people who communicate in some way, whether it's a podcast or they give talks or messages or teachings or they write a blog. And I'll just do 2 days on the creative process and how to take something in you, a story, an instinct, an idea, and how to give it language in a clear and coherent sort of way. So I do events for business people and spiritual leaders about heightened consciousness and how you think about your work in the world. So I do that kind of thing. And then I have a weekly podcast where I do my talks and teachings and I interview people. And then I have a kid's book coming out this summer. I wrote a novel last fall about a motivational speaker who has a mental breakdown.
Which I'm sure a lot of people think you have had.
Well, that's actually the beauty of the novel is people are trying to figure out which things are biographical and which aren't, which I think is just so entertaining. So yeah, and then I have like a one-man show I do at a club here, in a comedy music club in LA. So I make things, and I try to create spaces where people can explore what it means to be a spiritual being having a human experience, as the great D. Chardin said. And I always want to announce good news. I come out of a Christian tradition which believes in a buoyant, joyful, honest announcement of good news for the whole world. So I try, and I'm having more fun than ever. And then I have kids, which is really, my wife and I have 3 kids. That's really what I do. The other stuff I just do, I fit in when my kids are at school.
Oh, my goodness. And your website is robbell.com?
Yes. Yep.
You remind me of this great attempt in the scientific community to come up with something called the unified field theory.
Yes, sure.
And that's kind of what you're doing at the spiritual level.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's the best thing anybody's ever said, by the way. Thank you. I will carry that around for days.
Well, it has been an absolute delight speaking with you. And
thank you.
I want to commend your book to all of our listeners, How to Be Here by Rob Bell. It is a slim book that's fun and easy reading and oh so rewarding. So, Rob, thank you again.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you. We'll do it again sometime.
You bet.
Okay, bye-bye.
Goodbye. Okay, we're going to go to break. And then we will be back with our guest, Mary O'Malley.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. I'm Miriam Knight of Rising Stars and New Consciousness Review, and I'm speaking with Mary O'Malley. Mary is an author, counselor, and awakening mentor in Kirkland, Washington. In the early 1970s, Mary had a powerful awakening that led her to begin changing her relationship with her challenges and freed her from a lifelong struggle with self-judgment and despair. And today we're going to talk about the book that came out of all that. It's called What's in the Way is the Way. And Sounds True out of Colorado recently came out with a brand new edition. And I am so delighted to welcome Mary O'Malley. Hi, Mary.
Oh, so glad to be here, Miriam.
Well, after all of the technical glitches, I'm delighted that we've finally managed to connect. Clearly, this was meant to be.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Tell us about your book, What's in the Way is the Way. How did you come up with that title, and how is it relevant to the book?
Well, it just came in meditation one day because my life for the first 27 years of my life was just pure struggle. And I tried to fix myself, and other people tried to fix myself. And my first awakening teacher taught me in the seeing is the movement, that there's nothing that needs to be fixed, changed, rearranged, gotten better, that as we learn how to ground and show up for whatever life is offering, especially the challenging times, we discover the power of our attention to actually heal what has been bound up. So more and more we are available to life. So I oftentimes say to people, oh, you don't even need to read the book, just live the title.
So let's go into that a little more deeply. What do you mean by seeing?
So we're going along. Let's take for an example that you've gone to a party and you're with your new boyfriend and he's holding your hand and you know you're just so happy and you go to the bathroom and when you come back he's talking to an old girlfriend. And you feel awkward, and you feel all of these, what I call spells in this book. And I love the word spells because these belief systems that we took on, these belief systems of fear and not enoughness and frustration and confusion and doubt and helplessness and hopelessness, we all kind of absorb these from the adults around us when we were growing up. And so when you are not conscious, you are in reaction. Oh my God, he's going to like her better than me. And, I don't know what to do. And you go over and try to be in their conversation. It's just awkward, and you leave and you find a drink, and you're just caught in this whirling mind. Oh my God, he's going to leave me. Oh my God, he's going to leave me. So now let's imagine you go to that same party, and now you're conscious. And you can feel some tightening inside of you, and you go and you just ask life, okay, what is asking to be seen? And you go to the bathroom, and you come back, and he's talking to an old girlfriend, and you can feel this tightening. Let's say it's in your throat, okay? And what we don't know is that all of these spells, these deep beliefs that we try to fix and we try to manage and we do therapy around, what they need is our attention. They're just like you and I. There's something that relaxes inside of us when somebody listens to us. So you notice the tightening in your throat, and you just go over to a corner. You just bring your attention into your living experience right now. And as your attention comes into your throat, then there you can hear the stories in your head saying, oh my God, he's going to reject me. She's more beautiful than I am. And you see them. And I oftentimes invite people to say, I see you. And it is that attention that allows these old spells to move through us.
It's a bit like the often quoted phrase, the truth shall set you free.
Right.
That when you actually focus on what you're feeling.
Exactly. Yes.
As opposed to the stories around it.
Right. The stories take us so far away, and we all have these challenges in our life. Maybe it's not a difficult party. Maybe it's a difficult boss, or a out of control teenager, or a challenging medical diagnosis. And what we usually do is we leave ourselves. We tighten, we run away to our heads, and we're up there like scrambling, trying to fix things, trying to understand things, trying to change things. And we do not understand that as we learn, and this is why I wrote the book, because this is not something we're skilled in, the art of turning toward ourselves rather than turning away. And all your listeners know what I'm talking about. Let's say you're having a bad day and you go to a friend, and that friend does with you what you do with you. She tries to fix you. She judges you. Oh, not again. She just turns and leaves the room. She just absolutely ignores you. Now, just imagine you go to another friend, and that friend just listens. And you talk for 10 minutes, and you feel better. Why? Because what was bound up inside of you was received through accepting attention, and it moves through you. So that's why I'm saying we're beginning to discover the phenomenal power of our own attention, and discovering how to bring our attention into our immediate experience.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a very powerful technique. I have heard that same approach applied to pain and illness.
Right. Yes.
But pain can be psychic as well as physical.
Yes. Mental, emotional, physical.
Right.
And my main mentor was Stephen Levine, who he said, what woke me up were 2 Tibetan lamas and thousands of people on their deathbeds, because he was head of the Hanuman Death and Dying Project, and he walked through thousands of people through their dying process, and he discovered that when you can be with that process, it actually heals you. It may even heal your body, but you don't have that intention. You just want to be with that experience. And what I have done is broaden that out of just the death and dying world and into our daily lives. Because in a way, all of the challenges that we experience are the training grounds for our actual dying back into life.
Mm-hmm. I think that analogy that you gave of two different girlfriends, one who doesn't have the patience for you and the other who listens, and you really do feel better after it's like getting it off your chest.
Right. And being heard. That's this
Right.
this second friend. She doesn't offer suggestions. She may nod her head every once in a while, but she doesn't interject. And what if we really understood that when we look out in nature, everything flows. Day flows into night, winter into spring, sap flows up and down trees, light flows, sound flows, water flows. And we were intimately one with that flow when we were very young. And then, because this is a schoolroom, we took on some of the craziness and we learned how to tighten our bodies, hold our breath, and run away to our minds. And what we long for is to come out of what I call this bubble of struggle, this storyteller that talks in our head all day long that really is addicted to struggle. And we long to see that and see through it so we can relax back into this highly intelligent, creative flow that is life. For this moment is our home.
The other implication of what you were saying is that we need to make friends with ourselves and act as our own best friend.
Yes. Stephen would say over and over again, we leave ourselves when we most need ourselves. And what I will add to that, there is absolutely nothing about you, nothing about your body, nothing about your personality, nothing about your feeling nature to be ashamed of or afraid of. This is just bound up energy that we all took on. We were young, and I love to say to people, Stephen said it first. He said, I'm going to create a hat, and when you put it on your head, it's going to instantaneously broadcast over a loudspeaker all of your thoughts. And the first time he said it, there was a collective groan in the room. But this is why I do groups and lead retreats and all that, so we can all come together and really see that there's nothing to be ashamed of about this storyteller in our head. There's nothing to be ashamed of about what we're feeling. There's nothing to be afraid of about what we're feeling or about what's happening in our body. And that is where freedom lies.
One can take that on board intellectually, but it's a really different thing to actually internalize it.
Yes.
What was most helpful to you in making that leap?
Curiosity. I just love that word. I mean, I, hung out with a lot of Buddhists and all that, in the 70s. And that was the time when I was still really caught in my personality and thought everybody else did awakening better than me. And everybody else definitely did meditation better than me, and all this. And one day I was sitting in meditation trying to meditate. And all of a sudden something just shifted. And I realized there was nowhere to go, nothing to do. It was all about being curious about what I was experiencing right now. So I oftentimes, when I'm working with somebody, I say, without changing anything, notice what is. And the more I was curious about my experience, the more the clouds of struggle began to thin. And then my curiosity opened back up into life, into this magical, wonderful, amazing adventure that is life. And I realized that for most of my life, I wasn't here. I lived in ideas about life rather than the living experience of it.
Mary, we are speaking with Mary O'Malley, author of What's in the Way is the Way. We have to take a break now, but we will be right back. Please stay with us.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Matt Connerton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connerton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connerton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the Internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mary O'Malley about her book, What's in the Way is the Way. Mary, what is your website?
MaryO'Malley.com. And it's OMALLEY.com.
And no apostrophe.
No apostrophe. The web does not like apostrophes.
Okay, MaryO'Malley.com it is. So, Mary, you've constructed this book as a sort of 10-week journey. What is the end point of the journey?
Well, it starts very, very slowly. We have to realize that most of the time in our lives, we live in thoughts about life. I love the quote from Alan Watts, the Zen philosopher. No matter how many times you say the word water, it will never be wet. So awakening is beginning to discover that mostly you're not here for life. You're in stories about life. And then in the 10-week series, it's starting to strengthen the muscle of your attention and, choosing a focus and coming back to it. And two things happen there. Number one, your curiosity gets stronger. Not only your curiosity about the taste of your sandwich or the smell of an orange, but also about when anxiousness comes, that rather than you saying, I am anxious, more and more you discover how to say, oh, anxiousness is here. This is what I call look to unhook from this storyteller that separates us from life. And then the other amazing thing begins to happen is that you notice that there's something going on here right outside of your stories about life. And it's life. And I'm looking out this beautiful window right now. I live in a little cottage under a 152-year-old maple tree, and it looks out onto this secret magic garden, and here's all these variations of life. And every single leaf, every single blade of grass, even the water in the pond, even the fish in the pond, were all made out of atoms that were once a part of a star. And so when we're caught in our head, we totally miss this. Stephen tells a story about a 93-year-old woman on her deathbed that said, it can't end now because it hasn't started yet.
Oh, boy, that's a sad comment.
Yeah, but I think that's most people. Most people still, where we are evolutionarily, go to their deathbed completely identified with the storyteller in their head. But if they're listening to this conversation, there's something that's pulling them back, not only to having more and more moments where, I love what Pema Chodron, the wonderful Buddhist nun, says, that enlightenment is relaxing into life. I love that. Though more and more moments where your mind, your body, and your heart are all right here, but also more and more moments, even when great challenges come, that you can look and unhook from whatever drama, trauma stories that your storyteller is spinning about this particular challenge, about your boss, about your boyfriend, about your health, about, whatever.
I'd like you to try and elaborate a bit on that, because on the one hand, I got the impression that, when you're feeling pain of any form, you're encouraging us to kind of stand outside and observe the pain and say, oh, I'm feeling pain. And yet, on the other hand, you're talking about feeling life, really embracing. And so how do you know when you're on the outside or inside, and when you're supposed to be on the outside versus the inside?
I invite people to become a tightness detective. Our natural state is openness. We are a part of nature. We are a part of this great flow that's been going on for 13.8 billion years. And to me, there's no accident that most of the people we call saints were always painted with halos around them. It isn't that they have a metal contraption, sticking out of their head. It's because their energy is open and radiant, because science has now shown us that we are made out of light. And so it is a process. Stephen was asked once, how long does this take? And he says it's the work of a lifetime. And what I would add to that is that it's the only game in town, that we're discovering how to use our attention to be with what tightens us, whether it's a pain in our body, a pain in our heart, or a struggle in our mind, so that this bound up energy can soften and relax and open back into the flow.
So it sounds like what you're urging us to do is to get rid of the sort of shell that we have around us that we create with our stories. It's like there's so much noise in our head that we really can't hear or see anything beyond it.
Exactly. And what's beyond that is our home. And I wouldn't quite say get rid of. I would say see and see through it, because at some level we will always still, we do need a personality. One of my teachers years ago once said, even Buddha has a personality. How do you know if you're standing in a room with Buddha and his back is to you and you say, hey, Buddha, he'll turn around. So it's discovering how to use our mind rather than being lost in our mind.
I think I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what is the role of the heart in all this?
Thank you so much for asking that question. I just did a radio show on the heart. What we now know is that we have three brains. And we have our gut brain, and there's a lot on the news now about how the gut brain affects the head brain and so on and so forth. There is the head brain. But what we now understand is that the heart is a brain, and it is our main brain. And so they did a study at Heart Math Institute where they put people in front of computers and had sensors on their body, their heart, and their brain. And then the computer randomly chose either horrific pictures or neutral pictures or beautiful pictures, and then they registered people's reactions. The heart always responded first for everybody. And for a good deal of the people, the heart responded 6 to 8 seconds before the computer even chose the picture. That just boggled my mind when I heard it. But when you understand that the head brain is dualistic in nature, it's a tool for maneuvering through reality. The gut brain is where your knowing is, but the heart brain is this inclusive place where we come back home to oneness. And we could say that so much of this healing that many people are now exploring is having our head come home to our hearts, to our main brain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So would you say that that's sort of the core message of the book?
Yeah, well, the core message is coming home, but also coupled with that the challenges of your life are tailor-made to help you see your particular storyteller. When I was writing it, this all came out in one fell swoop. Life is set up to bring up what has been bound up so it can open up to be freed up so you can show up for life. And when we really become one with life again, we live mainly from the heart. This is not a mushy heart. This is a highly, highly intelligent brain that science is now discovering is our main brain.
Mm-hmm. So, Mary, I understand that you offer trainings and courses through your website?
Yes, I have a couple of different courses on the website. I also do phone groups. I also do retreats, but two very, very close family members have been quite ill for the last year. So I don't have any scheduled for a year now so that I can walk through their process with them. But I'll be doing retreats again. But I also do phone counseling and Skype counseling because we really do need to gather together with other people that are awakening. It's almost like learning a language. And it's just like if you're going to learn Spanish, you need to practice it, with somebody that knows Spanish.
Kind of a conversational group, right?
Exactly, right.
So you are practicing open connection to, what are you practicing? How would you put it?
How to ground and open into the living moment of life. That this moment where you and I are sharing and people are listening, that is the only moment that matters in their whole life. And that's why I call it coming home.
Well, clearly, this is a message worth repeating again and again, that now is the only moment we really have to create our lives and to live our lives. So I want to thank you very much for being with us, Mary. We've been speaking with Mary O'Malley about her book, What is in the Way is the Way. Her website is maryo'malley.com. Thank you, Mary.
It's my joy, Miriam.
And I do hope you'll join us next week, hopefully with no glitches. I'm Miriam Knight. Until then, be well, be blessed, and get out there and live your life. Goodbye.